Hey guys, welcome to DDJ's Inferno, the mostly weekly show where we talk about issues relevant to men, masculinity, and gynocentrism. Today, we originally had slated Kraut to come back and do a follow-up interview. Unfortunately, at the last minute, it looks like he had to cancel because he didn't wake up on time. This was unfortunately opposite of his sleep schedule. So he was hoping that he would be available for me, but apparently he's not. So with that said, originally we were going to make a special stream for him, but originally we were going to talk about Title 4D with Plumber, but we're going to be doing a bit, in addition to talking about Title 4D with Plumber, we're going to be doing a little bit of a Red Pill roundtable on this particular issue and do a little bit of a deep dive. So with me today, I've got Plumber, I've got Grizzly, and I've got Wolf. So I just wanted to kind of touch base with everybody and just say good morning. I'm kind of surprised, actually, that Kraut isn't here. I hope everything is okay with him. I know he's been going through a lot right now. So, but with that said, good morning to everybody. Good morning, Plumber. How you doing this morning? Right on. And good morning, Grizzly. Yeah. So, Grizzly, how's dog shit a stand today? Right on. Right. Got it. All right. Well, apparently people can't hear you, so let me go ahead and see what's going on my end.
A little bit here.
That's okay. That's okay. Let's go ahead and go from there. I think that it was just I'm having some technical issues because
They can't hear Grizzly or Plumber.
Yeah, I noticed that. It was on my end. I'm running the stream today from my Linux machine. So there's a little bit of some technical issues here because it's a completely different machine. So Grizzly, go ahead and talk. Make sure everybody can hear you. Plumber, go ahead and talk. Make sure people can hear you.
Hey, testing.
Sally sold seashells down by the seashore.
Of course she did, because she's a prostitute.
Right.
All right.
She's fuck that
Yeah,
whore.
those seashells smell like tuna, though.
Yeah, they do. All right, guys.
While I'm drinking. Son of a bitch.
All right. Can everybody hear? Everybody? Just want to make sure there's no issues. So, again,
right, cool.
I'm running the stream on a different machine. I'm trying to move away from Microsoft a little bit, and I know that people don't like it necessarily when I do kind of a little bit of a monologue beforehand, but I kind of want to explain where I'm coming from because I think it's important. Plumber, Wolf, Grizzly, feel free to jump in and add to the conversation. As much as you feel that you need to when it comes to this. Microsoft actually went after Gab, and Microsoft was using, Gab was using Azure to host its platform. And what ended up happening was that Microsoft ended up being upset by some of the comments and content that certain people were posting on Gab. So Microsoft actually threatened Gab over a post that one of Gab's users made. And they said, we're going to cancel your contract because of what a post did unless you censor their post. And this is a huge issue because, this is an attack on free speech. And big tech is attacking free speech everywhere. And I think that it's one of those ways that we need to reduce our reliance on these monopolistic big tech companies. And one of the ways we can move away from that is by moving away from some Microsoft platforms. And it's funny because a lot of people are like, well, DDJ, I could use Linux, but not very many people use Linux. And, not a lot of people have adopted Linux. So, unless it's adopted, why would I use it? Because I'm not going to get the support. Well, the reality is that that's no longer the case. You guys here, in the stream, those people in the audience, anybody who uses an Android phone is using Linux currently. You see, Android is a flavor of Linux. So 80% of all the smartphones in the world are Android phones, which means 80% of all the smartphones in the world are on Linux. So, and Linux is daunting as it was, say, 5 or even 3 years ago. Linux is actually a viable desktop replacement for office purposes. So in other words, LibreOffice does just about everything Microsoft Office does, except for some advanced Excel spreadsheet things. But it still has that capacity. It just doesn't have all of Excel's macro compatibility, but it has its own macros abilities. It's just as powerful as Excel. And the thing about Linux is not only is it more useful as far as you don't need to worry about bloatware that Microsoft installs, but you can run it on an older machine. I'm running this stream right now, running dual monitors, an external hard drive, my microphone, and my wireless mouse, and I'm running on a machine that's 8 years old, and I'm using probably 30% of my system resources. So, and this is a laptop that I'm running it on.
How user-friendly is it? It's
extremely user-friendly because it's point and click now. Now, and the thing about it is that even in the areas where you should be scripting, you can go to a website and they'll show you this is the script you type and this is how you do it.
Okay. That was always my big issue. I tried Linux, back in the early 2000s because I didn't like XP.
Right.
Because I thought that was pretty bloated, but
let me jump in on this a little bit. I've used Linux on and off, and I'll say on the server side, as far as Gab goes, Linux servers are the best in the world.
Yep.
Low system resources, high performance, great durability. They can handle heavy loads. That's what she said. But no, seriously though, on the server side, Linux is excellent. I mean, they're on the back end, they're very good. On servers, internet servers, database servers, Linux is excellent. It's secure, it's safe. It's much better than Microsoft, hands down. On the desktop side, it needs some work. And the problem is there's the problem I've experienced with Linux is it's not compatible with some of my stuff. For example, I have a gaming keyboard. Good luck finding drivers that enable the extra gaming keys and functions of the keyboard in Linux.
Correct. Yeah.
Logitech won't make a driver or even give them the API so they could do a driver on their own. Now, there have been some attempts independently to make drivers, but the one person actually had a halfway decent driver. He shut down his website and stopped putting out the driver.
Right, and I will say you're absolutely correct for custom equipment. Yeah, Linux still has a little ways to go.
And Linux actually read Raz Al Ghul's. You're wrong. For the games that do work on Linux, they run much better on Linux than they do on Windows with less system resources.
I can confirm that.
It's just porting the games over, getting wine configured, doing all the stuff, and now every game's going to be able to be ported over. But that's even changing because of Steam and stuff like that. So. Right,
but the thing about Linux and Raz Al Ghul, I think this is something important to address your concern. The issue with Linux and gaming is primarily DirectX. So you have to understand that, like, when Microsoft contracts for these companies to build their games for them, the reason that the games run better on Windows and they don't run on Linux is because their contracts say, look, you have to build your gaming platform for DirectX. DirectX is a Microsoft product. However, yeah, I agree with Grizzly in that many games, like with Steam is now, they're running Linux distros. Probably I'd say for, 40% of the Steam games now have Linux distros for them. If you go to Humble Bundle, they have Linux games. You go to Good Old Games, they have Linux games. And the thing is that, there's a lot of games out there that are brand new that are amazing. I love Wildlands. You can't really play it on Linux. I like Far Cry 5. You can't really play that on Linux. However, most of the other games that are out there, the brand new games, they're full of social justice bullshit. Like you look at Watch Dogs 2, for example. Watch Dogs 2 is absolute social justice cancer. And yet, nobody's going to play that game. But you look at a lot of these older games like Wasteland 2, Pillars of Eternity, the Half-Life series, for example. Those are great games. And I know people today that still play Half-Life 2 and Half-Life 1, the source version. Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question about that. Do you still, this is on kind of the setup side, do you still have to, if you're going to run Windows and run Linux, do you still have to partition your hard drive and do all that kind of bullshit?
Yeah.
Well, but you do have to do that, but Linux will do that in the install. It does all of it automatically. And what's interesting is that Linux default partition tools are far more powerful than what Microsoft's are. But the other
is true.
But
okay,
because on my laptop I'd have Linux on, and I customize my partitions.
Yeah, you can do way more with Linux partitions than you can with Microsoft partitions. But the other side of it is that, let's say, we're sitting here and we're streaming online right now. If you're on a Windows 10 machine, and TFM has come through this with his Windows 10 machine, if Microsoft starts an update, fuck you, it's going to do an update. And it's going to take over all your system resources in order to do that. So if you're gaming, or if you're doing, live streaming and you're a content creator, or let's say, you're using a VPN for work, or you're setting up subpoenas and you're typing for work, and Microsoft does an update. Yeah, exactly. You're doing work. Microsoft does the update. Fuck you. You've just lost everything you're doing. Linux doesn't.
That's why I don't have Windows 10 on my system. I'm still using Windows 8.1.
Right. Now,
whatever it is.
I will say this. Originally, when it came to Ubuntu, for example, I use a version of Ubuntu called Xubuntu. But with the version of Ubuntu used to use the Unity engine, and that had phone home functions, which would clog up your networking. And of course, it would let people know, let like Canonical know what was going on in your hard drive. They've actually moved away from Unity, and so Ubuntu is one of the better choices out there now. Again, obviously, everybody's going to make the best decision for them, but for me, I want to move away from big tech as much as I can. So, in addition to switching over to Linux for more of what I'm doing, I've also created a Steemit account, which gives me access to DTube, and I'm going to be uploading my videos to DTube, which is a blockchain decentralized platform similar to Bitchute. But the other advantage of DTube, in addition to that, is that DTube will allow me to live stream, and they won't shut me down because of freedom of speech bullshit. And the advantage of that is that I can actually live stream with more bandwidth than Gab allows. So I've seen people live stream on DTube. It's a brand new function. I think it's only been up for about a month or two. And people are actually streaming gaming on DTube as well. So if something happens and they shut my Twitch channel down, I'm still going to be streaming on DTube. I still have Gab as an option. I'm still using Minds. So I still have these other options. And eventually, once I can get everything set up, I'm going to be moving away from Discord, and I'm going to be moving to riot.im as my Discord alternative. Because now Discord, what they're doing is they're scanning your computers for video games and stuff like that. That's what they're saying they're doing. But they're also partnered with Southern Poverty Law Center, and they're shutting down people's Discord servers. So
Discord is cucked to social justice.
Discord is absolutely cucked to social justice. And I think that is, that's a huge issue. So when it comes to a lot of these, again, when it comes to a lot of these games, and when it comes to a lot of these tools, there are things Windows can do still that Linux can't. However, Linux has been far more widely adopted than people realize, because again, 80% of Android phones, they're all Linux. Every time you use Android or Chrome OS, those are flavors of Linux. So you have to understand that Linux, in my view, is probably the most commonly used operating system in the world at this moment, by virtue of the fact that almost every smartphone is running Linux now.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole stream about alternate social media sites and alternate operating systems to Microsoft and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't necessarily want to jump on that train right now, but I think you're absolutely correct. Now, as far as what we were originally going to talk about before we were going to do the Kraut stream, we were actually going to have a conversation with Plumber and talk with him about Title 4D. Title 4D is Part D of Social Security, is something that a lot of people don't realize and don't know about, but I think it's a huge issue that needs to be discussed. So with that said, thank you for putting up with my bit of monologuing. I'm going to turn it over to Plumber. Plumber, talk to us a little bit about Title 4D. Give us an overview. Bring us up to speed.
Okay. One of the most insidious federal laws that if every person who has a job or has worked and is collecting Social Security or paying into the system should be aware of it. I really truly think there would be an absolute revolution if you really knew what it is. And I'll read there on the Title 4, there are several parts. There's A, B, C, and D. C has been repealed, but at the very beginning of Title 4D, I'll quote, what's in there, what's in the statute. The federal act empowering the Social Security Administration the authority to grant to states for aid and services to needy families with children and for child welfare services. Okay? What that means is the federal government has figured out a way to take the money that we pay in that is earmarked specifically for use in Social Security activities to pay to people, to divert that money to actual state governments to create more state bloat. And the part I want to focus on today is going to be titled 4D, which happens to be child support enforcement services. Part A, I'm just going to explain them real quick. Part A is designed to give blank grants to states for temporary assistance for needy families. Again, that's more state government money directly out of Social Security, but it's a small portion of it. Part B is designed to give blank grants to states to develop and coordinate child and family service programs that utilize community-based agencies to ensure children are raised in safe, loving families, which is bullshit, but we're not going to go into this today. Part C has been repealed, and Part E is federal payments to the individual families whom take in and foster children, as well as adoption assistance. Out of all the parts, that one has, in my opinion, at least a little bit of merit. But Part D, it's rotten to the core. It's unconstitutional, or at least deceptive, and nothing more than stealing the American citizens who both pay into the Social Security Administration as well as those who draw on it. You, as income-earning citizens with a Social Security number, never probably wrongly believe that nearly 13% of your gross income is being placed into a place that the government for your future retirement age. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, Social Security has been identified as a tax and not any type of investment vehicle. Now, I say 13%. You're going to say to me, but wait, my Social Security income tax, my FICA tax is only 6.5%. Well, there's also
the employer, your employer contributes 100% of that on top of that, so that's why it's 13%, and I believe it's up to $112,050 or $112,500.
Yeah, before you max out.
Correct.
So let's just face it. If you've got a job and you're going to pay 6.5% of your Social Security income tax, and your boss is going to contribute, that 6.5 that he pays, that's a cost of doing business. That is it's a shell game. That's a direct cost on your cost for labor. And that it's just the way the government likes to hide the amount of money that they're actually taking out of your pocket. You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that the other side of this is that, when people talk about Social Security, they don't really talk about it in a way that that really addresses the reality of the situation. I mean, it's pretty damning when you really look at it. And that's the sad part about it is that, I'm looking at, subsection of Title 4D, subsection 455. Under Section 2, it's under A2, I should say. It says that the percentage applicable to quarters of in a fiscal year for purposes of paragraph 1A is 66% for fiscal year 1990 and each fiscal year thereafter. In other words, when it comes to Social Security, so what Social Security in Title 4D does is it reimburses the states for what they spend on child support enforcement and the establishment of paternity. So in other words, for every dollar that a state spends on child support enforcement or spends on establishment of paternity, the federal government reimburses them out of the Social Security fund 66 cents on every dollar. So the states are only paying, and they do this every quarter. So
that's just their baseline, though.
That's correct.
There's other incentives they get.
Correct. Well, let's talk about those a little bit.
Yeah. So let's say you got a guy who's been divorce raped, and let's face it, this is misandry on a massive level. Number one, 85% of all divorces or child custody issues, the mother gains primary care, let's call it,
She's considered for legal purposes, they call it primary residential custodian.
Correct. So she's the one entitled to child support.
Correct.
Out of the remaining 15%, 10% of those are equal 50-50, no child support is issued, and the remaining 5% is where the father, gets custody of the children. However, when it comes to child support enforcement, they are so one-sided. I personally know 5 different men who have custody of their children. The mother is not paying any child support. They have gone to child support enforcement services, and they shrug their shoulders and say, sorry, we can't help you. You need to take her back to court if you think you deserve it. But if a woman calls in, it automatically starts the process.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit. So when it comes to child support, child support enforcement, for those people who don't understand, they can actually file their own suit against the father to collect support, even if there's no custody order, even if there is a custody order, it doesn't matter. So even though a divorce is a private party action, in other words, I'm married to Jane Smith. Jane Smith and we both have a child. We'll call that child Joe. Okay, so we have this child, Joe, and we decide that we're separated. Now, we haven't filed divorce. We haven't filed any kind of separation paperwork or anything with the family court at all. My soon-to-be ex-wife will go and she'll go to child support and she'll say, hey, I'd like to collect child support from my ex. That's support
under the FDC, isn't it?
Child support it's what it is it's under the mandates that they have, and this is in every state. Child support can then issue what's referred to as an administrative order, where they don't even go to court, they just do it. So you get no notice, you get no due process, you get no rights when it comes to that go forward order. They just issue the order on their own. It's a piece of paper. One of their officers signs it. And now it has the power of a court order. They can garnish your wages. They can go to your bank account and take all the money out of your bank account. They can actually, if you don't pay that money on that administrative order, they can suspend your license. And if you get pulled over for a license suspension, in many states, you're going to jail and you're having your car impounded. So you have to understand that the Child Support Enforcement Agency is its own, even though it's part of the executive branch. If you look at it from a constitutional perspective, it is acting as the judiciary and it's acting as the executive. So it violates the separation of powers first and foremost. So it is unconstitutional on its face from a federal constitutional perspective. Now, secondly, once they go after you, they are considered a party of interest. So in other words, the state actually can enter into your private party divorce. So imagine that for a minute. Imagine if you were in a car accident or you were in a business and you sued your business partner and the state just showed up and interfered with the lawsuit on one side or the other. That's unconstitutional state interference.
That's fucked.
It is. It is completely fucked. And people don't understand exactly how damning that truly is. So now you have the child support agency, in order to fund this witch hunt against men, this violation of our federal constitution, separation of powers between the judiciary and the executive. They are getting reimbursed by the federal government out of the Social Security Fund, 66 cents on every dollar they spend.
And again, that's just their baseline. They have incentives also.
Talk about those.
And we'll talk about the incentives a little bit. Okay. Once a state let's say an individual paying father, because that's the majority of them.
Right.
Once he gets either 3 months behind or a total of $1,000 or more behind on his in arrears, they automatically file a second request for grant money to the federal government, at which time the federal government then pays the child support enforcement a dollar for dollar grant. So let's say you're $5,000 behind on your child support. The federal government writes that your state's child support enforcement a $5,000 check specifically earmarked to combat you for them to recover the child support that you pay. And this is every year. So let's say they get $5,000 and they start their actions against you, their enforcement actions. And let's say you manage to get down to $4,000. Well, next year they apply for $4,000. They take any of your income tax returns. Again, like I said, they take your driver's license away from you. They take any federal licenses. Like, let's say if you're an attorney, you have to have a federal license or a state license. They take that. and then they will, it's just, I don't know, my mind is blown right now with all the things that the tools.
Well, and let's talk about, let me kind of jump in here a little bit as well. But before I do, you and I have been kind of running everything. Grizzly, talk to me about what your thoughts on this are for what you've heard so far. I know you haven't boned up like me and Plumber have, but you usually have some pretty good feedback. So kind of jump in here and share that with us right now.
Who, me or
you?
Wolf?
Grizzly.
Well, for one thing, not that it's a big fact because most people probably don't know this, but the Social Security fund is hurting right now, big time. It's really hurting. It's going into the hole, and they're using Social Security money for this bullshit. And it's just goes to show you can't. It's gynocentrism. You can't, if you make the mistake of getting married, and it shouldn't be a mistake getting married and having kids, but in this day and age, it is a mistake because as soon as she divorce rapes your ass, even if you're disabled on SSDI, they're going to pinch you. And there's just no way. The only way out is not to get married, not to have kids, don't even get in relationships. As TFM says, just get a doll. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, they've mobilized the entire federal, state, local government against you just so some broad can have her baby mama maintenance fees, because that's what child support is. It isn't for the child, because most child support does not get spent on the kid. We all know this.
Grizzly, do you know exactly how much money a year we're talking about that gets diverted from Social Security to the states?
I'm sure it's in the billions of dollars.
The last records that I can find is 2012, and that was $14.6 billion per year. Now, it's grown exponentially. I think I've seen grumblings that it's up over 16 billion now. I can't confirm that, though.
And look, this whole thing about getting the man to pay the child support or quote unquote cracking down on deadbeats, it's not about cracking down on deadbeats. It's about punishing men, because regardless if the man loses everything, gets thrown in jail, loses his ability to work, loses his license, loses any special certifications he has or state licenses, the woman's still going to get paid. It's about punishing men. That's all it is. It's not about going after the deadbeats.
I'm not going to go that sinister. I think there's.
I'm going to go that sinister because think about it. If a guy can't work at his profession because, say, he's a developer. DDJ's talked about this a lot. Talked about, say, if certain jobs require you to have a driver's license, and say the guy gets pinched for child support because he just can't pay because it's too the amount's outrageous, and they take his driver's license away. He can't. Say he's a developer. He can't get a job as a developer. So he goes through and hole. And they don't give a damn if you are able to make money or not. They still want their money, so they throw him in jail. So basically, I think if you want the guy to pay his child support, you would work with him and make sure he has a job so he can pay his child support. But they don't care; they'll throw him in jail. But guess what? Regardless of that, the woman will still get her child support money.
Well, and I think that's an important.
It's not about cracking down on deadbeats. It's about punishing men. This is all it's about.
And I think that,
it's also about protecting their make-work jobs.
Well, but I also think too that I think Grizzly hits the nail on the head when it comes to a lot of that, and that is that it's a combination of two. It's you're paying women with useless degrees to discriminate against men. Because let's look at the reality, right? If your number one goal is to focus on the best interests of the children, then you would do whatever is possible to focus on collecting the money for the best interests of the children. But here's the thing. You would also not waste government money unnecessarily to provide for rent-seeking jobs. And here's the thing that frustrates me about the way the child support system is governed, is that about 95% to 99% of all child support in the United States has to go through support enforcement. They're court ordered to do so. So even for fathers who are current on their child support, they still have to pay support enforcement, and then support enforcement then has to pay somebody to process those checks, process those accounts, and then fund those accounts to the moms, or to repay any kind of welfare benefits she's receiving. Well, the problem that you have with that is that those are unnecessary jobs. If the man is current on his support, why does he have to go through support enforcement? The reality is he doesn't. The reason that they are forcing these men to do this is to make jobs for feminists with gender studies and sociology degrees that can't actually do anything to contribute to society. So this is just, it's creating and it's expanding a welfare state. But more importantly, DS8 or DCS, Department of Child Support, what they often do is they will fuck up administratively, and then they won't process the man's check, or they'll cash a check and not record it or whatever. Now he's behind in child support, and now they can enforce against him. But you see, there's another whole side of this that nobody's even discussed. I've brought this up before, and I think it's important to bring up now. That 66 cents on a dollar that the states get reimbursed for collection of child support is not just for support enforcement. Now, in other words, it's not just for the Department of Support Enforcement. The courts get that. Law enforcement gets that. Any government agency who is part of child support enforcement gets it. That's why you see these sheriff's departments go around and they do these child support roundup SWAT teams where they get together 15, 20 guys and they've got a SWAT team van and they go to some guy's house and they kick his door in at gunpoint so that they can arrest him for child support, because they want that money. Because they get reimbursed 66 cents on every dollar that they used to bring that SWAT team and to mobilize that SWAT team. Plus, it's good training, because you know what? If you kick the door in of a law-abiding citizen, odds are he's not going to shoot you. So
gonna be changing.
I think it will. But then on the flip side, when you go into the family courts now, especially in the larger jurisdictions, they actually have their own child support docket. In other words, they have a court commissioner or a court referee or a court judge where all they do is hear child support cases, because again, they want some of that federal dollars. They want some of those federal dollars as well. So what they're going to do is they're going to have an entire child support enforcement docket. So that judge who's making $120,000 to $215,000 a year, part of his paycheck is going to be paid by the federal government. And again, it makes it a lot easier for the states to afford everything, because they're robbing Social Security to get it. But I haven't even told you the worst part. That 66 cents on a dollar is also going to the jails. So every time they jail a man for child support enforcement, they're getting compensated by the federal government. They're not only getting compensated from the federal government for jailing men in general, because they do get kind of a grant for that, but they can double dip and they can get into child support and get some of that money also. So this is a huge scam, and everybody's talking about, well, we're not going to be able to afford Social Security 15 years down the road. Well, I'll tell you what, if you repealed Title 4D, I bet money on it that a lot of the issues that people are having with Social Security would go the fuck away. Because the sheriffs would no longer be able to dip into the coffers. The courts would no longer be able to dip in the coffers. The county jails would no longer be able to dip in the coffers. And all these make-work jobs that child support enforcement has, and all these women who've been hired to specifically, and male feminists who've been hired specifically to discriminate against men, these people would no longer have jobs. And frankly, when it comes to men who currently pay their child support, who are current on their support, which, by the way, is the majority of non-custodial men, they shouldn't have to go to a fucking government agency to cut their ex-wife a check anyway. All that does is it creates a layer of bureaucracy where no bureaucracy needs to be, and it creates strain on the parent-child relationship, because the calmer that you can keep that post-divorce relationship between the mother and the father, the easier time that child is going to have to grow up in a healthier way. But the more stress that you create on the biological mother and the biological child, the more likely that child is going to suffer the negative consequences of divorce, which I've outlined in chapter 3 of my book, #ShowAlert.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's an interesting fact. Just with the welfare system in general, 70 cents of every dollar is spent on overhead. So the quote unquote welfare recipient, which are mostly women, only get 30 cents on the dollar.
Yep.
And that's why you wonder why things are going down the toilet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Well, and frankly, I know somebody in the chat, Red Ray Shalgul, talked about University of Chicago gender studies. We should actually, in the United States, I think that when it comes to degrees like gender studies degrees, I think that we need to just do what Hungary does. Hungary decided, you know what, we're no longer going to fund gender studies degrees. I think that's a great idea. What kind of job are you going to get with a gender studies degree? I mean, at least with an English degree, you can say, look, I could be an English teacher, or I could be a writer, or I could be a journalist, or I could be something like that. But with a gender studies degree,
you go overseas and teach English.
Yeah.
But then the women wouldn't even want to go to college if they couldn't get some simple degree like
really? Imagine. Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Well, you know what? You could do it very simply with that as far as that goes is you take the power to give out student loans away from the government, put it back into the hands of the banks so they can make the best decision based on creditworthiness, risk. So say a guy comes in, he needs a student loan to finish his engineering degree, electronics engineering, let's say. They're going to look at his grades. They're going to look at, they're going to look at his potential to be able to pay it back. And they'll be like, okay, this guy's a good risk. Let's give him a loan. Then you're going to get some like 300-pound, wildebeest feminazi in there. And she's gonna be like, I'm a gender studies major. And then they're going to laugh her fat ass out the door.
Well, whatever happened to the scholarships and the private business?
Well, but
we're getting away from things.
But here's the thing. Let's talk about that. And this is a good tangent to get on. Let's talk about that for a second. Here's my theory on financial aid. Okay, if you go to the unemployment office, why are you going to college? That should be your number one question. Why are you going to college? You're going to college so that you can improve your life to give yourself some long-term financial stability, correct?
Right.
Right.
And sure, maybe some people might be more interested in being writers. Maybe some people might be more interested in being, whatever they want to be. They want to be a journalist. They want to go to the humanities and be, a sociologist or something, or they want to be a psychologist or, some of the soft sciences, whatever. But when you go to and you want to apply for school, kids out of high school, if they think they're going to get financial aid, they need to go down to the unemployment office and they need to say to the state unemployment office, and every state has one of these where they track what are the in-demand job fields for your state. So if you go into Texas and you say, okay, what are the in-demand job fields? Okay, it's this list of job titles. Well, what do you need to do? What kind of academic training do you need to get to be able to work in that particular job title? Okay, so now you have that track of what's there. These are the courses. These are the training programs that we will cover for financial aid for your state. And if you want to go to a state, let's say, for example, let's just take Texas, for example, and I'm being totally cliched. So Texas is a big oil state. So, let's just say all their demand shit's in the oil industry. Well, you don't necessarily want to work in the oil industry. Well, maybe you want to go to Chicago, and maybe Chicago has a big in-demand thing for journalists. So then you go to Chicago, and the Chicago State Unemployment says, well, we need journalists, and here are the requirements for that. Well, now you can go to college in Chicago to get trained as a journalist.
State college.
Exactly. And then, but anything that is not an in-demand field, go play hide and go fuck yourself. You're not getting financial aid for it. No goddamn, underwater basket weaving fucking lesbian dance therapy degrees. None of that. You pay for that shit on your own.
Exactly.
You want to do that shit? You pay for it on your own. If it's not a requirement or it's not a necessary elective for your training program for that in-demand field, go play hide and go fuck yourself. Because nobody's paying for it.
You know what the country needs? It needs people with trade skills.
Yes.
There's a trade skills shortage in this country. It's becoming a crisis.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely, there's a trade skills shortage.
Because all the snowflakes are going to college for worthless degrees that cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Meanwhile, Joe Snuffy, goes in, becomes an auto mechanic, and he may start out not making a lot of money, but if he keeps up with his certifications, specialize, and let's say he gets a job with Mercedes-Benz or one of the electric car companies, he can make a lot of dough being a mechanic.
Right. I do have an announcement to make before we move on. I've decided, because I wanted to make accommodations for Kraut, we're going to actually run a double feature today, and I'm going to run the Q&A at the same time. So we're going to actually have an extended show today. So for you guys who are currently on the roundtable, once we finish talking about this, before we do Q&A, I'm going to throw Kraut in, and we're going to have a conversation with him. And then,
cool.
And then what we'll do is we'll do the Q&A for everybody all together.
That could work.
All right. So I'm doing a little bit of dancing today, but we're gonna make this happen. And Kraut overslept just like I thought he did. And we're gonna move forward. Like I said, life happens, man. While we make other plans.
Adapt and overcome.
That's it. And while you're down there, look behind my sack. So I wasn't talking to you guys or Kraut or anybody. I'm just saying that there it is. So, but yeah. So there we go. And it looks like Rose overslept as well. So there you go.
So I guess the rugby team gave her a really hard time yesterday.
Well, really kudos.
She's got some raw knees.
Kudos to her if they did. She got the attention she needed. So, I'm not saying it's good for the rugby team, but whatever. So, but yeah. So anyway, my point is when it comes to that tangent on college, I think that those things are important, and I think it's gonna, it's gonna do a good job in reducing the size of the welfare state. And I think you're absolutely correct, Grizzly. We have a trade skill shortage in the United States. And what people don't understand is this. I mean, and so we're clear, like, when I was self-employed as a paralegal, I would go pick up another job on the side, just to make sure I had, basically inexpensive benefits. And I would go I was a senior journeyman in grocery, and, I was making sometimes $50,000, $60,000 a year in grocery on top of what I was making as a full-time paralegal. So you guys there's money to be made in some of these trade skills. You just have to work your ass off to do it. And that's the thing, is that people don't think about this shit, and they don't think about, they're like, well, it's hard work and this and that. Well, let me tell you something. Would you rather go to college and get yourself into a lot of student debt, or would you rather go and apprentice in a trade for 4 years?
Yeah, I think the stream is dead.
Let me take a look here.
Taking a shit. Yeah.
Let me take a look here. Oh yeah, it is. It's actually still alive. It's just having issues. Give me a second here. I'm going to reset and start it over again. Hold on. Let's see if we can get a new connection.
I've got kind of a little life hack there. And what
give me a second.
About.
Yeah, give me a second here. We're still recording, but I'm going to stop the stream and start it again.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I got a better IP address. Give me a second here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start the stream again. I've got a brand new IP address because, VPN for the win. Go play hide and go fuck yourself, DDoSers. And there we go. So it's funny how I mentioned Kraut, and then all of a sudden the DDoS attacks start. So that's fucking hilarious.
Everything starts spurging out.
Yeah. Nothing says cuck lives matter like, the free speech cuck squad fucking saying that they're going to, we support free speech, and then they turn around and fucking do this shit.
Yeah, they're just as bad as the SJWs.
Well, that's what
makes me think that there's somebody on the inside at Twitch that's been monitoring us this whole time.
No, it's not Twitch. It's the Spurgs. So
it's the alt-right Spurgs.
Yeah, it's the Spurgs. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I understand they've got their issue with Kraut, and Kraut's got their issue with them. But I don't have a dog in that fight for the most part. So for them to try to do that, it's pretty retarded.
It's fifis and wham-whams.
Yeah, it really is. And frankly, I think I agree with TFM at some point where he said that, there are no innocents here. And Kraut admitted to that. So I think that's kind of the push there. So it is what it is. But with that said, let's jump back to the Title IX conversation, because we got about 15 more minutes.
4D
or Title IX. I know. Well, Title IX is cancer as well.
It's cancer too. Yeah.
There lots of cancer. So, but with that said, go ahead and jump back in there, guys. Plumber, go ahead and continue.
Well, this is kind of I am a deeply individualist, small government type man. But let's think about this just for a second. Just this concept. We're spending 14, 15, 16 billion dollars a year on child support enforcement. And that's every year recurring. Let's just say the social justice warriors won. Okay. The liberal Democrats in their progressivism, and they want to fund. Wouldn't it be by far cheaper to take that 14 billion a year and in 1 year just say, okay, we've got all these parents all these fathers that are deadbeat dads, and we're just going to issue a one-time payment directly to the mother whose father is in arrears on child support, and we're going to catch him up. That'd be a one-time fee, and I bet it would be half of the $14 billion that we're spending right now. And that would be a real way to get the money directly to supposedly the children. But we know that's not where the money gets spent. But, wouldn't that be a whole lot better than these make work careers and these retirement benefits and these grant monies to help courtrooms build new courtrooms because they got to have a place to do this enforcement? And all the other psychologists and every freaking organization in the world that can even latch on to trying to get a hold of some of this money that is earmarked supposed to be specifically for people, individuals who are in need of Social Security, either by age or by injury or health benefits, and unable to work. Doesn't this make a whole lot more sense?
Well, it does make sense, but let me correct you on one thing. You got a lot. It's not just the liberal Democrats that are supporters. You got a lot of these trad-cuck Republicans that are like, a man takes care of his responsibilities.
Oh yeah, I forgot. So
it's actually on both sides of the political spectrum. Well, yeah, but also I look at it. I've always said this. I'll say it again. The trad-cons and feminists are two sides of the gynocentric coin, because you got the feminists.
Hey, they're saying they can't hear you.
Yeah, I end up muting myself, so that whole diatribe will get on the recording, but it won't get on the live stream. Yeah, we're a professional show. Yeah. That's fine. Go on. Gynocentrism and traditionalism are two sides of the gynocentric coin. You got the feminists on the gynocentric side. They want the government to take money from the taxpayer and give it to the woman. You got the traditionalists, generally your traditionalist Republican types, your trad cucks. They just want to cut out the government middleman, and they just want quote unquote traditionalism under this system where the man just gives the payment directly to the woman via marriage, enslavement. So they're both on the same side. They just go about different ways of doing it.
Right. Yeah, the trad cucks don't even understand. It's like, well, you've got to pay your child support. Hey, motherfucker, what about how about I get my children and she can go play hide and go fuck herself? They won't even consider.
Or how about she can get a fucking job just like me?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. I mean, we're running out of time for this portion of this segment, so let's do a 30-second wrap up final word. Let's start with Grizzly. Grizzly, give me your 30-second final word.
With this Title IV bullshit, it's just you're gonna women are gonna get their money no matter what. Either through some sly shit like using Social Security to facilitate it and draining the Social Security fund, or one way or the other, women are going to get their baby mama maintenance fees, and it's complete and total bullshit. But this is the nature of the beast under gynocentrism. Don't get married, don't have kids, just get a doll.
There you go.
Hashtag get a doll. Yeah.
All right, Plumber, 30-second wrap up, final word.
Okay, my whole point on this whole thing is I honestly believe that it's time for a nationwide class action lawsuit between men who pay into the system as well as men who are getting paid by the system, because this is an absolute travesty of violation of our federal civil rights under the guise of what Social Security Administration is supposed to be providing for us. It's not right that this money gets earmarked and diverted to state governments. I really do think it's time for some level-headed lawyers who aren't living in the divorce rape culture for their funding, for their livelihood, to take this issue into hand and destroy the whole system.
Okay. And I think that when it comes to this, I think that the other piece of that is that I think that a lot of these administrative orders and administrative actions by child support that are done without a county court order from the actual judiciary I think that those things are a violation of separation of powers from the United States Constitution. I think that's a problem. And so I think that these people are running without constitutional mandate. I also believe that when we talk about systemic discrimination, a lot of feminists talk about it from a perspective of, men discriminating against women systemically, when really the opposite is happening. So when it comes to these types of things, we need to stop the systemic discrimination. And the best way to do it is, number one, if you're going to have a child support enforcement office, okay, you're going to have one, but it should fund itself through the state, not through the federal government. And secondly, if you're going to have a child support enforcement office, then child support enforcement should never be involved in a private party dissolution where the father is current on his child support. It's enforcement. It's not collection. So creating this collection system is unnecessary welfare state bloat. And it's basically, it's faking out the system. So I think that's a problem. And I think that for those reasons, I think that at least those portions of the child support enforcement system need to be abolished. And a lot of people will save a lot of money by doing so. But when it comes to jailing men for child support, if you really cared about children, you wouldn't jail men. If you really cared about children and you were focused on making sure the money got to children, you wouldn't take away men's licenses. That is systemic misandry, especially when it comes to job placement, where you have diversity executives who say, well, in order for this job requirement, we need to make sure that, you have a driver's license. I can't tell you how many tech jobs are out there that require a valid driver's license for sitting on the fucking computer. You don't need to drive to work at a desk. You can catch the bus, you can ride a bicycle, you can do whatever. You don't need a driver's license for any of these jobs that don't require driving.
Unless you live in a rural area.
Well, even if you live in a rural area, you can still catch a ride with somebody, or you can bicycle to and from work. I bicycled 18 miles each direction to and from work. So, and I'm just the average guy. So other people can do those sorts of things as well. The question is how much you want the job. And if you don't have a driver's license and you're applying for one of those types of jobs, maybe you need to rethink your fucking priorities. But at the same token, don't tell me that I can't have a particular job to support myself because I don't have a driver's license, when a driver's license is not the requirement. There's no justifiable requirement for it. And I think that is one way where feminists have been able to systemically discriminate against men. And that's not a good thing. So with that said, while we are waiting on Kraut, I think he stepped away for a few minutes. Let's go ahead and jump into Q&A. And by the way, Rose, welcome to the stream. Glad to see that the rugby team treated you well.
How much duct tape and step ladders did you wind up using?
So was the rugby team really hard on you, Rose?
So hard.
She's the crossbar and the wobbly H.
There you go.
No. Just fucking no.
She's the central hub in a richer salad.
There you go.
Pivot woman in a circle jerk.
All right.
No.
So with that said, Wolf, what kind of question? Oh, I need to also apologize to everybody in the chat because of the way I've got this on a brand new system. When I say brand new, I mean as far as running this on a new system. I don't actually have my Bukkake choke slams set up so that I can recover them right now. So I want to apologize for that in advance. So when it comes to those types of things, let's go ahead, just so you know, type your questions in chat. So if you did a Bukkake choke slam for today, I will refund those Bukkake choke slam points for you. And also let's go ahead. So basically go ahead and ask your questions now. Actually, we're going to switch up a little bit. I'm dragging Kraut into the channel so that we can actually have the conversation we were having before. Kraut, looks like you've muted yourself. Hello and welcome. Good morning.
Sorry for being late, man. I was swamped with work, man. Not really swamped. I was just obsessing with it. You know that when you work on something and then you don't stop working because you just want to finish it.
Well, under most people, I would consider that as an excuse. But based on our last stream, I'll buy the story that you were obsessed, because I believe that completely. So good morning.
Good morning.
So, gosh, I mean, it's great to have you on. Lots happened over the last few months. Just so just so we were kind of doing a little bit of a roundtable. Grizzly is a former content creator. He creates content occasionally. Plumber's a little bit of a kind of an MRA. We were talking about Title 4D, which is something in the United States.
Hey, MRA! Holy cow!
Yeah, there you go. Wolf is
DDJ, could you pot Kraut up a little bit because they're saying he's kind of low.
A
little low. Yeah.
Wait. Am I connected with the wrong microphone? Let me take a look.
All right. Wolf is our Q&A guy, along with DDJ's harem slave, which is Rose. So she's a lot of fun. So what was interesting is while you're setting your mic up,
okay, I think I fixed it.
You did. What was interesting though is that the second that I mentioned that you were going to be on the stream got DDoSed and I had to switch up my VPN to get a new IP address.
Oh god.
So such is life.
They went so first to flag my entire channel of YouTube when I came back, and they even flagged the mirrors of the videos that I uploaded.
Yeah, I bet. Well, let's for those people that didn't see the prior stream or that don't really know kind of what's going on, kind of give us a brief recap of December 2017 till now.
Brief. Oh, Jesus Christ!
I know. I said brief recap. Go on.
The starts far beyond December. Like in August last year, August 2017, I got together with a couple of friends and we decided, okay, we're annoyed by the alt-right. We should make videos on them. And we made a Discord server where we gathered together. And then we thought, okay, we need to take on race realism. So we contacted biologists, chemists, etc., psychologists. And we got them all together in this server. And what we did was, we fucking researched videos. And then that server, by the way, was publicly known that it existed. I announced on Twitter that it existed. And then this alt-right spurg, who is half Arab, called Braving Ruin, sent people to secretly record us. And then he made a massive data dump, which he called a leak, saying, oh, these are secret recordings of the people in the server. And it proves that it's a doxing server, and these people are doxing people in the alt-right and giving the doxes of alt-righters to journalists. And it just started a giant shit show because everyone believed it.
Just so we're on the same page, I apologize, Kraut, for jumping in and interjecting. Wolf, I'm looking at my audio levels. Kraut actually seems to be fine. If they're having issues with their audio, it might be actually on their end and not on this end, because he's going all the way up to 0 decibels without any issue at all.
Gotcha. I hear him loud and clear.
Yeah. So, and for those people that, for whatever reason, if you can't hear one or more of us, I'm going to be actually leveling out the audio at the end of the stream. I'll be normalizing everything. And so in post-production, you can kind of go back and kind of watch the segments you miss. I apologize if there's any issues. Also, it might have also been just because of the way when the stream got DDoSed about 15 minutes ago and that little snafu that was there. So I apologize for any inconvenience up front. Thank your friendly neighborhood spurgs for that. So with that said, Kraut, go ahead and continue.
And when that shit show happened, like that was the weird thing by accusing us of doxing, they somehow, they had no evidence of such and we didn't dox anyone. And they gave themselves through that justifications to just completely dox us. I don't know if they did it to you too, but
they tried. They tried. They actually tried to dox me like 2 or 3 times. And it was actually kind of funny because what they did was, toward the end, they tried to create some drama between me and another MGTOW YouTuber. And, then I was supposed to go onto a stream and debate one of their, IBS people. And right in the lead up to that stream, it was interesting. Are you familiar with Jeremy from The Quartering?
Yep.
Okay, so Jeremy actually did a video last year. It might have been the first part of this year. I don't remember. Called "Don't Debate the Alt-Right," and it was interesting because in his video he talks about what the standard operating procedure is, and so he's like, they bash you here, they false flag your stuff, they try to dox you, and then once your stress level's super high, then they'll go on and debate you. And it was interesting because what he described was exactly what was happening to me once I agreed to debate an alt-righter. And once they attempted to dox me, that's when I realized I was done. And what's funny is they actually doxed my pen name that I used to write my book, The Feminist Lie. They found the Wikipedia for some guy from an old 80s band. I think it was Devo. And his name was Bob Lewis. And they added my book to his Wikipedia. And they're like, we got him. We got him. And the guy's like 70 years old. And they were posting it. They're like, we got him. And it was retarded.
With me, that came from my family. That was the part that eventually drove me off the internet, basically.
Right.
And that came for everyone's family. With Jeff Holiday, they doxed a completely unrelated Holiday family and came for that Holiday family. I think you know what they did to Devil's Advocate.
Yeah, and for those people who don't know what happened to Devil's Advocate, I did a video called Ghosting the Rahowa, where in the beginning of that video, I talk about what the alt-right did to Devil's Advocate, where they ended up contacting his mom and threatened his mom. They tried to get his wife fired from her job. I mean, this isn't just like mean words on the internet. These people are out there trying to destroy lives. And here's the thing. It's not everybody in the alt-right. I mean, there are people in the alt-right who truly believe in their position and they want to debate and they want to act in good faith. But there are elements within the alt-right that on a good day, they're just unethical pieces of garbage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you also... You watched the videos that when they found out that I was attempting to come back, they wanted to frame me for rape in order to scare me further off the internet.
Right. Well, that's the dog whistle everybody uses. But go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
Oh, you probably heard the secret recording where this guy was dumb enough to literally say that he doesn't care that the accusations are not true and made up. It doesn't matter that they're not true. It's literally what he says, as long as it sticks. And all the other shit they pulled when they found out that I might be going back to address this, like doxing my parents' address, and I'm not entirely sure, but they might have tried to get them swatted and shit like that. And the central figure of the drama, Braving Ruin, when he figured out that, he lied, obviously, about us doxing people. When he saw that people were actually defending me on YouTube, he sent around the family information of these people who defended me. He just complete psychotic. Well, they attacked me for months, and not only did they attack me for months, but they found any YouTuber in the MGTOW community who didn't like me. They went and tried to motivate those YouTubers to try to come after me. And not only was I targeted, but even TFM was targeted. And it was funny because Turd Flinging Monkey doesn't even like you. And they were like, you were on his doxing server. And he's like, dude, I don't even like Kraut. What are you talking about? So it was like anybody who might have been remotely associated with anybody who may have ever mentioned the word Kraut, all of a sudden, you're a doxer too. It was really retarded. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you saw what happened when they plotted to frame me for rape. What happened was that one of their inner circle thought, okay, this is going too far. I don't want part in this anymore. And came to me and showed me all DMs which you had with the central figure of this drama, that being Braving Ruin.
Right.
And those were the most revealing shit I've ever fucking seen. I mean, literally 2 days before the drama, he was complaining to his friends that he had people secretly recording us and taking screenshots of our private conversations, and that he was complaining that we were doing nothing wrong.
Right.
That we were doing nothing that he could call out. And then he directs that conversation towards, how about we just reinterpret this and just, I don't know, make shit up to accuse them of.
Right.
It's so fucking slimy. Really disgusting.
Well, and I mean, let's be real here. I mean, in our last stream, you admitted that you had kind of gone over the edge as well. And unfortunately, you had gotten into some unethical conduct and behavior as well. And honestly, I mean, you got a lot of respect from me, and I think from a lot of people, because you admitted where you stepped off the reservation, where you kind of went to crazy town and you got really obsessed about over this whole thing. And, I get that as a content creator, we're researching videos, we're creating documents, and sometimes, we don't really necessarily have people to bounce stuff off of. So, we can get a little bit obsessive about things. I know I have a little bit, and I've got people around me to be like, hey, DDJ, you're fucking batshit crazy, back off. And I'm like, okay.
I can understand why. This is your livelihood, it is important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I totally get that. And I also think that when it comes to a lot of this stuff, I think it's important to remember too that, I mean, you guys were bouncing back and forth with the whole, like, you were the troll campaigns and stuff like that. I mean, it got pretty crazy for a while.
Yeah. The troll campaigns, but the thing that really got, like, I just got crazy over the course of months, mainly because it just grinds on you over time.
Right.
When every time you upload a video, you got 5, 6, 7 response videos. And when you just have to sift through ages of work, and when it takes you a month to make a video,
Right.
and then they have a response video full of bullshit up in 24 hours. That's one of the funniest part about this. You know this because you were on the server, that literally in the same week where the drama started, we were about to finish our response video to JF, our first response video, and how back then everyone was, praising JF over what a genius he supposedly is. And now everyone realized that he is just we saw it back then. We were almost prophetic in this.
Well,
we
and
saw before anyone else did that this guy is just a fucking raving lunatic. Well,
and that's the thing is, I mean, let's be fair to JF a little bit, and I'm going to be a little bit of a devil's advocate. So sorry, devil's advocate. I'm going to play your part for a moment. JF is very eloquent, and he does make persuasive arguments when it comes to certain things. Because I don't really know a lot of these players and I didn't know any of these players before I met you, but I didn't know a lot of these players even after you per se. But the thing that I found that was very, very striking to me, and hopefully the Spurgs don't get too upset about this, is that JF was pushing this narrative about white nationalism and, the idea of the races were different and race realism. And he was conflating race realism, which I believe in, with race determinism. I think determinism, I guess, it would be the more accurate term. And I think that those things they're separate. I mean, when I say everybody, many people believe in race realism, but they don't think that race realism controls how successful a race is per se. But at the same token, the thing that bothered me about JF was that he was really into white babies and trying to promote, Caucasians breeding with each other so they could have their Aryan race. Okay, that's great. But then he goes and he gets a mentally incapacitated Latina woman, takes her across state lines, and for the express purpose of trying to have an anchor baby with her in the United States. Yeah. And the thing about it is that I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, well, look, if I want to push forward the white race, and I am, let's just say I'm, I don't know, let's just say I'm blonde hair and blue eyed and my name is Nord. And I'm like, I want to push forward the white race. I'm going to find the best genetics of the whitest chick I could find, who, is the strongest woman I could find. And she's going to be the woman that I'm going to want to breed with so that I could have my IQ and my race realism and everything else that's going on. I wouldn't choose the chick who's most likely to have a mentally incapacitated child with a double-digit IQ who is not even white. It undermines the entire argument. And the sad part about it is that all that information surrounding that, it's all public record. And it's like, oh my gosh. And what's interesting is that I know you guys use some of it to demonstrate about how crazy he truly is. And I guess what some people would say is that, there's a thin line between brilliance and insanity. But
I think you give him too much credit. Like, I believe he's just a complete fucking insane creep. That's just my humble opinion of him.
How do you really feel? Don't hold back.
There's stuff that I can't even talk about.
Right.
Like, the court documents are a good place to start. Have you read those court documents? Have you read the divorce court documents?
I read the stuff about the guardianship that happened in Texas. I saw snippets of the court documents, but I haven't seen the whole sets of court documents yet.
Have you read the court-appointed psychologist's interview with the girl, where he asks her, "Do you feel that you're capable enough to have a child?"
Oh yeah.
Enough to get a job and then care for the child, and the the document literally says she never answered the question. There was a moment of silence, and then she later said, "I like animals and have 3 cats."
Oh yeah, definitely want to promote the white race with her.
Yeah, and the divorce documents, the fact that he before even any kind of divorce was complete, that he threatened his wife that he would kidnap their child when it was born, and that all this crazy stuff of him, you know, calling the police and complaining about shit that wasn't happening, and ranting about getting a firearm, really just completely insane stuff. It's just terrifying in a way. Right. Really fucking terrifying.
Well, sure.
And the other thing out of the divorce documents, the guy, it came out of the court documents that he didn't quit his job at his university. He was fired because he kept having sexual relations with the undergrad students, and that he contracted genital herpes. And the court documents show that he, and this is not a joke, refused to seek treatment for his genital herpes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, that's insane. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, you know, obviously we could talk a lot about that. I mean, we could probably do an entire video about, you know, the genital herpes and that whole story. You know, obviously he wasn't the only one. I mean, thankfully, a lot of people were at least adult enough to recant their false allegations against you. And, you know, the truth finally came out. Let's talk about a little bit about kind of where you're at today, kind of what you did while your time was gone, and kind of what your direction is moving forward.
I got a job. First I worked little jobs, you know, doing translations. Then in the summer, I worked on a construction site briefly. And then I signed up for college again. So I'm going back to university this October, and I'll be studying history. Okay. Mainly because it interests me. I studied IT before, and right now I just want to do something that really interests me. Plans for the future, I guess I'm still going to keep the channel running, but yeah, I want to kind of find another source of income, a stable one.
Right. And I think that for, you know, with the way the algorithms have changed with YouTube, and just the way that YouTube has changed, you know, how it promotes channels. I think a lot of long-term YouTubers are realizing that YouTube is no longer a viable source of full-time income, and they need to diversify their income sources. I know that, like for myself, I've got offline income sources as well. I know TFM has offline income sources. I think even Sargon now has offline income sources. And now I got to ask you a question about this too. A lot of people, when you were talking about when you did your explanation videos and you came back, are you still with me?
Sorry, you dropped that. Yeah, I think I dropped that briefly.
No, it's probably on my end. I'm running this on a Linux laptop, so the entertainment value is huge. So when you were talking about coming back and what your projects were at that time, you had actually talked about doing a video series on Imperial Japan. And I know when I read the comments, it seemed like a lot of people were interested in that. Is that something that you're still considering doing, or what are you thinking there?
Don't you remember that was what I was working on back in the server?
Right. I remember that was one of the things, right?
Yeah. But the problem is I recently tweeted about it and made an announcement about it. I did this 10 months ago is when I gathered this research together, when I read the books and got the documents and ordered a copy from of a diary from a Japanese general and all that shit. And I have to gather and collect this all together again, and I have to read it again. So it could take a month before this video series starts.
Okay.
But yeah, eventually I would like to get to it again. But it's just, you know, that's the fascinating thing about all of this. There was so much content that I would have made, but it all kind of fell apart. And these people managed to make barely any content in the time that I was gone.
Right.
Interesting in a way.
Well, their content was drama related. And I mean, that's really what they were focused on doing live stream shows and getting super chats in order to make their money. And
have you noticed how in the time that they ruled this corner of YouTube with this bullshit, the people who had the most success were social justice YouTubers?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, and I also thought it was interesting, too, that in the end, it turned out that a lot of these people were false flagging each other. They were doxing each other. You know, it got really gory. I mean, with the implosion of like the blood sports community, that was not a pretty sight. And I feel bad for a lot of those people that allow themselves to get caught up in that, because, you know, they were like the true believers. And then you see these channels just disappear into obscurity, and it's kind of crazy.
I think most of them will, like, look at Andy Warski now. He's basically just, like, I was thinking about making a video when I come back, just mocking the ever-loving shit out of him, but I look at him now and I just feel pity.
Well,
the fucking state he's in.
Well, and he was like one of those go along guys. I mean, he wasn't really one of, even though he had a huge platform, he was just kind of following everybody else's lead. And I do feel bad for him as well, because I think that, you know, this really negatively impacted him, and you could see his deterioration as everything progressed. And, you know, and again, yeah, Andy Warski's a perfect example of that.
Sorry. Yeah, he jumped on something thinking that it was the future and that he would get rich out of it. And then in the end, it just all collapsed onto him. Well, and he just stood there with his balls in his hands, not knowing what to do.
yeah. I mean, yeah, you know, it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is kind of funny because of all the vitriol that was spewed. But at the same token, I think that it did a lot of long-term damage to his brand and to his content. I mean, Jesus, he was listed on hate speech sites.
Google his name. Google his name and you will find like white nationalist, YouTuber, blah, 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 all that stuff.
Yeah.
He's never going to get rid of that for the rest of his life.
No. And the thing is I don't actually think he was ever a white nationalist. I think that he was just kind of going along with what everybody else said and just kind of,
but they was just stupid, to be honest.
Probably.
Just really stupid and greedy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, well, he was getting successful. I mean, you know, remember when IBS was a big thing, all those guys were making large amounts of money. They were having, the live streams had lots of people there. I mean, Jesus, look at Medicare. Medicare he recently brought in 20,000 people on a live stream. I think his was like the #1 live stream on YouTube. So, you know, when Medicare had their back and when he was pushing the internet blood sports things, they were all huge. And then it just imploded upon itself. And, you know, thankfully he saw it and got out when, you know, the time to get out was good. But let's switch gears a little bit, because I have some things that I really kind of want to talk to you about that you brought up that I wasn't aware of in some of your recent videos. You did a pretty scathing video about Coach Red Pill.
Oh yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about him.
That info in that video, most of it, you know, the thing he did to Stephen Keane,
right?
That's what I found out about him. Like the story behind it is, I think it was last year in October that someone told me to go watch a Coach Red Pill video, and I had never heard of the guy, and I just Googled Coach Red Pill. I came across his channel. I watched a few of his videos, and I thought, this is just shit. This doesn't make any sense. This is just horse shit. I don't understand how people enjoy this, but also I had a really uncomfortable gut feeling about the guy. I saw his real name in the description of his YouTube channel. He also had his company there and everything else. So I just Googled it, and I found all this shit that he had done. I gathered it together, and then I sat on it for 2 months, and I didn't know what to do with it, if I should make a video exposing it. I kept that separate from the task force server. And what I ended up doing in the end was just sending it to every YouTuber who I knew was being contacted by Coach Red Pill, to warn them to not do any business dealings or anything similar like that with him. And I made the massive mistake of giving it to a guy called The Guardian. The Guardian gave it to Braving Ruin, and The Guardian gave it to Jim, and The Guardian gave it to King of Pool. And King of Pool took it and immediately went to Kiwi Farms and just posted it all over the fucking place. And if people would have read that Kiwi Farms thread, fucking King of Pool was literally bragging that I was getting blamed for something that he was doing. But in the end, the funny thing is, like, I was accused of doxing him with this. That I was, you know, revealing his real name, all revealing, you know, details about his family or his private life. Nah, in the end, the most important thing that was revealed through this was the fact that he was involved in some pretty sketchy fucking business, potentially fraud and identity theft, which is serious, which is a really serious matter, especially if it involves stealing money from the followers of a certain content creator, as he did.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, I know that you talked about that in that particular video. Oh my God. I mean, if that stuff is true, I mean, these aren't just things that you can get sued over. Some of these things are crimes.
I know. I think that's why he lives in the Ukraine now. I think he can't go back to the UK anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if he's no longer welcome there. But that's just speculation, admittedly.
Wow. Yeah, because Ukraine's crazy right now. I mean, in Western Ukraine, you know, the government actually has neo-Nazis running parts of their government. And then the whole eastern side of Ukraine is like in civil war.
He lives on that side. He lives on the side. He literally borders a fucking war zone. Who the fuck would voluntarily go to live in a place like that? Apparently he. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's running away from someone. And just everything about him. You saw the clips of him claiming that he's a millionaire, and then he brags about how he's a deadbeat, how he puts kids in the world and then doesn't care for them and shit like that.
Yeah, I saw those clips. I'm like, that's crazy. I mean, again, the whole thing is crazy. And it was funny because Jeremy kind of called him out a little bit on some of that too. I was like, damn, because that was a stream that he was in with Jeremy, right? Pardon me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. I just couldn't believe it. Well, and the other thing too, I mean, you know, this isn't just like, Kraut's trying to disparage Coach Red Pill because, he's trying to defend himself. I mean, even Sargon did a video about Coach Red Pill. And it was interesting because his video was in response to a video that Coach Red Pill had done about Sargon to try to increase his relevance, and where Coach Red Pill posted a Skype chat between the two of them. And when Sargon posted, he's like, well, if Coach Red Pill already posted it, I'm going to go ahead and do it also. And when he posted that Skype chat of Coach Red Pill, oh my God. I mean, who says that kind of stuff? I mean, the arrogance and the narcissism are absolutely just, it's beyond belief. I don't understand that, because if you're going to say that you want the ethical high ground, you can't act unethically, and you can't just joke about it.
Yeah, the guy's just a loser crook. He's an unsuccessful criminal. That's my opinion of him.
Sure.
I don't regret anything concerning him. I don't regret exposing the guy. I think I should have exposed him earlier. Like, I do believe that this drama could have been avoided if I had made that video, I don't know, 8-9 months ago. And the really curious thing is that back then, since everything revolved around how I had supposedly, not everything, but a lot revolved around how I had supposedly doxed him. Of course, they also accused me of doxing countless other people, including Baked Alaska, Aiden Paladin, etc., etc. The curious thing was that they rallied to defend him for a very long time until they realized what he is. Like, it took them a long time to gradually realize that this guy is a complete and utter dirtbag.
Right. Well, and that's why I think that, like, when you look at the way, things have played out with the alt-right, I mean, there are elements of the alt-right that are attempting to act ethically. They are attempting, they just believe in their argument. They believe in their position. They think it's a well-founded, considered position. And I think that when it comes to that, that's really kind of where their dog in the fight is when it comes to that. But then you have other elements who have infiltrated the alt-right, or even, I don't know if they've infiltrated or not. I'm just saying that just to be kind. I don't know if they've infiltrated or not, but it looks like they've infiltrated, like people like Coach Red Pill and some of these other people who are not ethical, and they're just operators taking advantage of that particular community. And the reason that I say that is because, I mean, even the MGTOW community has had people like this, where the people will go in and they'll pretend to be supporting of those particular values, and then they'll turn around and realize that at the end of the day, they're not. They're just trying to get in there for their own benefit, make a little bit of money, and then get out.
I think a lot of these people are actually just into this for the money. I wouldn't be surprised if, a few years down the lines, some of these alt-right content creators, or at least those who call themselves alt-right content creators, will turn around and make videos about, I don't know, social justice. I mean,
it's funny you mentioned that. TFM and I kind of talked a little bit about this, not just last night on his stream. We actually talked about this a while ago as well. And his theory is that the alt-right is social justice for white people. In other words, these people got rejected by the SJW community, by the feminist community, and they're like, well, shit, we need to have our own. So that's why they deformed the alt-right.
Yeah, I think I'm far more cynical now than most people about all of this. I think that most of these people are just in it for money, that they would do anything for money, basically. That it's admittedly just my cynical opinion, but that's how I'm seeing these people now. I believe most of them would just the only thing they wouldn't do is just porn, I guess.
Well, you never know. That might be on the horizon. You never know. There might be a new category down the road for Coach Red Pill. Comb over porn or something.
I've never seen so many people so quickly change their opinions about something when money was involved, when a profit was to be made from it. That really surprised me.
Right. Well, okay, well, let me ask you this. So you went and found a job. You went back to school. Mm-hmm. You said you did some construction for a little while. Are you gonna stay? I'm assuming you're still in mainland Europe. Are you gonna go to UK or where do you think you're gonna go?
Oh, that's something that we talked about in private. No, that's something that I've been working on for years. Eventually, within the next couple of years, I'm gonna emigrate to, I don't know, either the United States or some other English-speaking country. Australia, Canada.
We have guns here. We have guns. We have freedom of speech.
I know. Well, my reasons are more like I believe I would be more comfortable in
at least for now
these countries.
Yeah. No, I get it. Well, with that said, I appreciate you taking the time to kind of come on today and talk to us a little bit.
I apologize for being late.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. I want to leave time for the Q&A segment, and I think we've gotten kind of organically where we need to be.
We had the second string available.
Yeah, we did. We did. So let me ask you this: is there anything else you want to talk about, or anything else you want to say before we go to Q&A, Kraut?
Nah, I'm fine.
Okay.
I gotta go and cook myself some food, and I've been working on videos again. So I don't know if something comes up again. You're always welcome to ask me for anything, pretty much.
I appreciate it.
Because you are one of the few people who basically just stuck around and saw through shit and saw it for what it was, which I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, like I've said in private.
Are you going to hang around for a few Q&A answers or questions, or do you need to go?
Yeah, sure. One. Oh, wait. Yeah. Nah, maybe next time. I mean, you can always invite me into a stream. I'm going to go and cook something, and I'll be, I
appreciate you coming.
Stream again.
Yeah.
Whenever you want to stream again, just let me know.
No problem, Kraut. You take care, and I appreciate you coming on. Have a good one.
Have a good day, man.
Have a good one, Kraut.
Take care, Kraut.
Thank you. You too.
All right, guys, let's jump into Q&A and let's move on. I know, like I said, I know he was having issues with his sleep schedule and everything else, so there it is.
All righty. First question is for DDJ. Have you considered getting a love doll since you are sponsored by the Dollhouse? If not, what is the reason behind it?
Yes, I've considered it. Next question.
That's one quick way to shut that one down.
Artemis the Kitten, a question they didn't specify who they're asking. When the credit card companies start to go woke or broke as well, will you consider opening a P.O. box and receive the money orders or even cash like that? What the quartering is doing?
Gosh, I don't know. Here's the thing. Like, for me, it's not about the money. I mean, yeah, the money is helpful, and I do shill the shit out of the ways to support the channel. But the reality is that, the majority of my income doesn't come from this channel. It doesn't come from my live streaming. So for me, it's not about the money. It's about making sure that people have, the appropriate information that they need to make good, solid decisions and to uncuck the cucked masses. So I think that, at the end of the day, people can support me in a variety of ways, and there's many non-financial ways people can support me. They can share my videos. They can talk about and do book reviews on my book. Of course, purchasing my book helps as well. So there's a lot of different ways people can help. And for those people that can't financially help, sharing my content, talking about my content, promoting my content, those are all ways that people can help. It's not necessarily about the money as much as it's about sharing the information and sharing the content.
All right, next question. This is the last one because there was one for Kraut. No, we just got another one in. Dreaming Music asks, DDJ, will there be a second printing or a second edition to your book in the future?
So there'll probably be a second edition to the book in the future. It was actually kind of funny. I caught a lot of shit because there are some grammatical errors in the book, but those grammatical errors were there by design. I actually had a professional editor. Exactly. I had a professional editor go through the book, and he and I kind of went round and round because I said, I'm going to leave some of these mistakes in there. And he said, why? I said, because I would rather have people complain about the mistakes than the content. And
you want to trigger the grammar Nazis?
I absolutely wanted to trigger the grammar Nazis because anybody whose sole focus on the grammar was somebody who was looking to nitpick the book to begin with. So, and I wrote the book in a very casual style. If you look at the book or you read the book, you'll see that like even the way that I cite my sources in a way that they're perfectly identifiable and people can follow up. But I didn't use the blue book of citations. I didn't use proper citation for a normal academic treatise. And the reason that I didn't do that is because I wanted to make sure that my book was approachable by blue collar people and people with just a high school education. But I also did it because I wanted to make sure that any grammar Nazis or people that would be totally triggered by the book would focus on that rather than focus on the content. And you know what? It worked like a dream. They're like, oh, there's typos here. No one will pay attention to that. And then they move on with their day and they're like, we won. Yay. And then my book became a bestseller. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, who's laughing now?
So it triggered the academics and the pointy-headed theoreticians.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and we live in a society now where people don't read the way they used to read in the back, like back in the day. So, very few people are going to read a 400-page book, even if they want to, because that particular book takes a huge amount of time and investment in order to do that. And, for those people that have followed my content for a while, I actually have a pretty wide and diverse vocabulary, and I could speak at a high level when I absolutely need to or when the situation calls for it. But I don't like to. I like to speak simply, I like to speak concisely, and I like to speak in a way that's approachable for everybody because I don't want to speak over anybody's head, and I want to make sure that I'm understood right out of the gate. And so I wrote the book in the same fashion because I wanted to make sure that blue-collared people who were fatigued would still be able to get my get the gist of my book because I want and I say fatigue because, if you're working a long, hard day, you get home, you want to read a book for a little bit. You don't want to necessarily think too much about it because you're tired. So that's why I wrote it the way I did.
All right. Question from Cassio for you. When can we expect your audiobook?
Soon-ish.
Soonish.
Ish.
That'll work.
Yeah. Honestly, here's the thing. Let's talk about the audiobook for a second. I was actually planning on coming out with the audiobook at the end of December of last year. And then as a result of the false allegations with Kraut, I was under constant attack from about the 8th of December forward. I mean, I have a voice actor for the book. And I mean, my Twitter was attacked. My Twitch was attacked. My YouTube channel was attacked. I was attacked in Discord. TFM was attacked. And then when the Red Pill Coin fiasco happened shortly after January, I had to push the audiobook back to deal with those things. And, and of course, at that point, my son was still in high school. I was still a single parent. I still had a real life to live on top of that. So I had to put the audiobook on the back burner. After that, I had probably 6 months of transition between about February and June or July where, I was going a lot of places. I was doing a lot of traveling. I made some massive changes in my life. And I mean, changes that I had planned for, but they were still changes that took a lot of time. And so the book got pushed to the back burner as a result of those things as well. So it's not as though like, I just had my thumb up my ass and there it is. I had a lot of stuff going on. And for those people that are kind of close to me, what some of those things are. I can't necessarily discuss some of those things right now because, again, I've had feminists try to dox me over my book. I've had white nationalists attempt to dox me. I've had alt-right attempts to dox me. And I still have people, today that are, taking my name in vain because, apparently their pussy hurts or something. So you have to understand that if I do get, if I do get a little bit ambiguous over some certain things, it's just because I want to make sure that I'm not providing too much information to unnecessarily dox myself.
Okay, she says she wants it as a Christmas present, so it'll be done by then.
There you go. It should be. Looks like Mr. MLP Vermin or something has a...
Yeah, it says, did you get DDoS the last time Kraut was on?
Yeah, actually, I think that somebody did attempt to do that, but they were not as successful. I think that this time, I think the only people that are concerned about the whole Kraut thing are the actual Spurgs. I'm just glad that the truth had enough time to come out on its own. I mean, Kraut and I don't agree on everything. And, I've told him where I disagree. He's told me where he disagrees with me. It's just that the methodology that was used to witch hunt him, it was the same sort of playbook that social justice warriors use to go after men. And if anybody who's watched my first video on Kraut, where it was basically the anatomy of a witch hunt, I break it down entirely and show exactly how it happened. And if you look at the facts, you look at the verifiable facts of exactly how everything happened, it played out exactly how I said it did.
All right. Question for DDJ's pocket thought. Is your jaw sore? Just curious. From Grizzly.
You actually read the question.
I hate you. I fucking hate you.
You love me.
That sounds like
Fuck you. You can.
You wouldn't know what to do. You wouldn't know what to do without me, Rose.
Uh-huh.
that sounds like no.
Yeah, obviously not.
Yeah,
She
she's a
can
pro.
still talk.
Don't
Yeah,
let her
she's a
lie to
pro.
you. She wanted it to be red.
She's a pro.
Next question.
All right. The next actual serious question for DDJ is Russia and China. Bad grammar. I hate that. Are they fighting against feminism?
Yeah, they are. But you have to understand too, part of the reason that they're fighting against feminism is because the feminists in those countries, in Russia and in China, they're being financed by foreign powers. They're being financed by Canada, by the United States, by these other countries. And they're basically political agitators. Now, are they government actors? Well, no. I mean, I'm sure the government doesn't realize exactly what every aspect of feminism is. And they definitely don't see the dark side of feminism, but they are government actors. I mean, look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia actually has imprisoned a feminist recently as a foreign actor because they were able to attract foreign funds. I think that's a great way to maintain the sovereignty of your country. And, the thing about Russia is that Russia and the Eastern Bloc, they're very patriarchal. They're very into the family. They're very into family values. And sure, they're a little bit gynocentric in some ways, but men have rights there. And women are considered to be taken care of as well. So, those types of communities they're very good for society. Now, I don't know as much about China because I know that, China has the remnants of communism and they have their own little program going. I do know in the rural areas that family values are a little bit more important than they are here. But I think that one of the big challenges of China is that China has so many men compared to women that now they've got a serious problem on their hands. So, I mean, who knows how that's going to play itself out.
Hey, can I just dovetail or segue just a little bit on this topic?
Go for it.
I just had a Canadian citizen send me a Canada-Belize relations. We're not talking about it. I just had to read this. Canada. This is kind of feminist bullshit that's going on. Canada is working with the country of Belize. So I'm going to assume that they're also working with other countries. I've got a document specifically from Canada that says Canada's key focus on feminist international assistance policy is in line with the development priorities of Belize. Canada and Belize are working together on fighting gender-based violence, prosecuting sexual offenders, and promoting youth diversion programs. Belize also benefits from the Canada Fund for Local Initiatives, which has been supporting projects on women's empowerment, sustainable agriculture, and LGBTI rights. This is the kind of crap that the West is doing for the rest of the world. And I can't help but think that they're probably doing the same thing for Russia, at least trying to.
Well, they're attempting to, but you also have to understand too, like, Belize is a tiny country. It's irrelevant for most things. And frankly, the more social justice takes a hold, the more you're going to watch that country go right into the shitter, just like Sweden and Venezuela and the rest of them. So it is what it is. Do we have any other? I didn't mean
to drag you off topic.
No. I think it's an important note. The other thing I'm going to say, that was all the questions.
We just got one in.
All right. Now, I will say this. Canada did, I think Trudeau said something along the lines recently that basically they're going to try to have the majority of their foreign aid to go to feminist causes. When they found out that Trump was no longer going to do feminist funding for Planned Parenthood internationally, Canada said they were going to step in and do it.
Torch.
He picked up the torch and swallowed it. All right. So last question.
Yeah, it's about China and Russia again, asking how funding feminists will help them conquer those countries.
Well, they're going to do it exactly like they do in some of these other countries there. What they do is they create a feminist movement. Then they have the feminists turn on the government. I mean, look at our midterm elections here. You see like Obama's up there ramping up the rhetoric. You have Antifa on the streets that's committing violence, and they're, attacking government institutions, like military recruiting bases in California, or ICE in Portland, Oregon, or the Department of Homeland Security in New York. You have officials being harassed. You've got, I think it was Rand Paul was attacked by his neighbor who was a leftist. You have all these other people that are, they're pushing for illegal immigration and violating of the laws and basically saying we're going to ignore the Constitution and the federal statutes that are out there. And then on top of that, as we saw from the New York Times op-ed from last week, I think it was, we have infiltrators and entryists at the highest levels of government. We have the, communists in the White House. We've got people like Comey and Mueller who are feminist cucks who are cucking for Hillary and doing everything in their power to prevent Hillary from basically seeing justice for all the crimes she's committed. And the sad part about it is they've now discovered that almost all of Hillary's emails on her private server, they were not only hacked by the Chinese government, but the Chinese government may have used that information to kill at least 15, 20 American operatives on Chinese soil. So she may have additional blood on her hands in addition to the cavalcade of, suicides that, everybody does anytime somebody has any information on Hillary. So I think that when it comes to, China and Russia and the way feminist infiltration will occur there, you're going to see it in a lot of the same way that feminists try to practice entryism everywhere else. The playbook doesn't change, just the players.
Joe McCarthy was right.
He was.
Yep.
He was. And that's the sad part about it is that Joe McCarthy in mainstream literature is demonized for his attempts to protect the country. And I'll tell you what was interesting is that not only was he right, but Yuri Bezimov actually confirmed all of his concerns.
Yep.
So with that said, thank you everybody for kind of hanging out today. I appreciate everybody's patience with the little DDoS hiccup that we had. And for those people who showed up to see Kraut, I appreciate your patience there. He was able to come in and kind of hang with us for about a half an hour or so. I'm going to go ahead and I'll cut and paste all these streams together because with OBS, every time you stop a stream and start it, it creates a new one. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of extra editing on that. Hopefully everything should be up and I'll have a longer stream available sometime tomorrow. And then we will go from there. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Also, thank you, Grizzly, Plumber, Wolf, and Rose for hanging out with us. And before we leave, do you guys have any final words you want to leave us on? We'll start with Wolf since you've been quiet. Crickets.
Crickets.
Guess not. All right, Grizzly, what do you want to leave us on?
Just with Rose, less teeth, more sucking. But other than that, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. We need to let Rose get back to recuperating from yesterday. So,
Shut the fuck up.
No, she still has to make up to it.
There you go.
To us for being late. So
that's okay. She was busy. Rose, do you have any final words you want to leave us on?
Just, I'm sorry I was late.
That's okay. It happens. Plumber?
I want to thank you for having me on the stream and talk about such an important issue. And MGTOW men, there's more than just talking about women. We really need to start focusing on some of these government issue problems and look hard at programs like Title 4D, and let's start talking to our legislators and let's get this shit changed.
Right. I mean, the more we talk about it and the more we bring attention to it, the more people are going to pay attention to it elsewhere. And, then all of a sudden legislation is going to happen. So I think that you bring up a valid point. Wolf, are you still going to sit in silence, or do you have anything you want to close on?
no, I think it's all covered.
All right. Well, again, thank you everybody for tuning in today. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Later. Thank you for having me.